Okay, this is tutorial video number 1 on the TR-808 Rhythm Composer Audio Tool assignment. Step 1 for this assignment is make sure that you take the time to read all of this text at the top. Really informative, I think, just so you know a little bit of the background of what the TR-808 is and why it looks so funky in Audiotool. Is that it's actually based on definitely the most popular drum machine of all time. It's been used on so many tracks. It's kind of insane, especially music that came out in the late 80s, 90s, and even up to the 2000s. This was the drum machine that everybody used. Hip hop, electronic music, um, pretty much any kind of techno based music out there. Really, this was the main drum machine that they all used. And Audio Tools got a really awesome simulation of this drum machine built into the software. So we're going to check it out for this assignment. I also want you to watch this video. It's about 8 minutes long, and the drum machine, the 808, just turned 40 years old today. It was invented 40 years ago today, and so Roland, the company that made it, made this video just kind of celebrating it, interviewing a lot of the artists that have used it over the years. You'll get to hear it in action. You get to hear some different musicians just talking about using it and why they love it so much. So watch that just so you can get some background on it. And then we're going to proceed to step 1 once you're done with that. So if you haven't yet, take the time to go back up and watch and read all that. If you have, let's get into step 1. So we've got to create a new session, save and name it, invite me as an editor, and then load the TR-808. So let's do those steps together. So I'm already logged into my audio tool. I'm going to go to Enter Studio. We'll create a new project. And remember, in the upper right hand corner it'll say unsaved. Let's go ahead and save it. Change the name to your name, and Ryan Conger and underscore, and then this is the TR-808 project, just like that. And if you want, like I say, you can change some of these settings, but make sure the license stays on the top setting there so you can share it with me. And then we will hit save. Alright, so now it's saved, and remember Audiotool auto save, so it'll automatically save for you as you progress through your assignment, but you do have to do that initial save, so always do that first. Next thing we're going to do is invite me as an editor, so go to invite and type in fast forward music, all one word. You'll see my little pink icon appear there. Make sure I'm listed as an editor right there is what it'll say, and then hit save changes. And then the last thing we need to do for this step is load the 808, which is right over here. It's the second one over in the drums category under devices. So I'm just going to click and drag that on. Okay. And let's take a quick tour of what this thing is and what it does. We'll get into more details on this in the future tutorials, but I just want to give you a quick tour. There's a power button, but that doesn't really do anything. It's just for looks. Right underneath the power button is your instrument select knob, and there's these different sounds that you can select too. Let me just tell you what each of these are. So AC is accent. We're not going to use that one for this assignment, but I might show you what it does in a future tutorial. BD is your bass drum. SD is your snare drum. LT is low tom. And if you look on the low tom channel, we'll zoom in here, there's a switch where if you flip that up, it goes to low conga. So you can either choose low tom or low conga for this sound here. And that's the same with these next 5 here. There's kind of an alternate sound that it can go into. So mid tom, mid conga, high conga, rim shot, claves, hand claps, maracas. So that's kind of an important thing to keep track of. On the knob, it'll only say LT, but if you actually want to use the low conga sound, you have to switch it to LT and then also flip that switch up. And that's just like the original drum machine that way. And so it just goes around the dial, and as you go around the dial, it moves horizontally across your drum sounds right there. So choosing which sound you're working with is really important. Make sure that dial's on the right setting when you're programming that sound. You can either use the dial, or if you just click on that patch, you can click on the name down below or anywhere in that row, the light will switch to programming that sound. Okay, so that's a good thing to kind of always keep in mind. On the sounds, you can see there's some knobs where you can change the sound a little bit. Tone will make the sound higher pitch or lower pitch. Same with tuning, does the same thing. Decay makes the sound long if it's all the way turned up, or really short if it's turned down. Snappy will make your drum sound a little bit more slap kind of sounding. If you're familiar with what a snare drum is, that really turns the snares on. And then you see like some of these, not all of them have adjustabilities, like cowbell is what it is, but some of these other sounds will have, you can actually shape the sound a little bit. Each sound does have a volume knob up top, so you can make your bass drum really loud if you want by turning it up, or you can make it quieter by turning it down. Over here on the left, you have your pattern and your pattern bank select. So that's just like our last drum machine. The Machinist had patterns and banks. This does also. Our first pattern that we're going to create is going to be on A1. And then our next pattern we're going to create, you'll switch to A2. Make sure you keep track of which one you're on, so that you don't accidentally overwrite a pattern that you already made. And I'll go over that in the next tutorials also. There's a pattern clear switch, so if you wanted to clear out a pattern, just click on that. Pattern length. This is one of the things that really makes this drum machine cool. If you remember the Machinist, the last drum machine that we used, you could only do 16-step patterns, and that was it. So with this one, we can actually go all the way up to 64 steps if you want. Just click the plus or minus buttons. Most of our patterns we're going to be making are actually going to be 32 steps for this assignment, so that's cool. Prescale, this will slow down or speed up your pattern. For most of our patterns, we're going to keep it on the 3 setting, but if you want to mess around with that, you can see what that does when we get going. Master volume right there. And then here's where you actually program in your steps. And this is kind of different from the other drum machine. How that works is if you want to program, let's say, the bass drum, click on the bass drum or turn the knob to BD, and then these buttons here will be programming the 16 steps just for the bass drum, right? So if I click, then I want it 1, 5, 9, and 13, like that. See, I'm on the bass drum, and those red lights come on. Switch to the snare drum, I could have that click on, let's say, 7 and 11, and then you just click through the sounds and slowly program in your beat that way. So it's a little bit slower, maybe, than the Machinist. You can get quick at it and be pretty good. Let's go ahead and push play and see what it sounds like. See, I'm changing the kick drum tone there. Taking the snappy out of the snare drum. Okay. So that is the 808 in a nutshell. Next tutorial, we're going to start programming beats in it. So that's it for this tutorial. Tune in for the next one to get going on it.